streaming, is that correct?
Yes, he should be.
Yep, we are live, Madam President.
Perfect. Thank you so much. We're going to go ahead. It is 6 p.m. and call this Tuesday, May 12th, 2020 school board meeting to order. First up on the agenda is roll call, and all board members are present on video and audio. We have our flag salute, and I have asked our past president, member Star Marcette, to please do the pledge for us.
Okay. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, in liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. I'll go ahead and read our opening statement. The board is honored to acknowledge that our community resides on the traditional land of the Dena'ina people, both past and present. It is with gratitude that we honor the land itself and the people who have cared for it throughout the generations. We want to welcome you to our virtual meeting and thank you for attending and supporting the work of the Anchorage School District and this board. The mission of the Anchorage School District is educating all students for success in life. The board thanks students, parents, teachers, staff, school business partners, and the entire community for your investment in our district with your time, your talent, and your tax dollars. Next up, we have the approval of the agenda. May I get a motion to approve the agenda?
I move to approve, Madam Chair.
And is there a second? Thank you. Are there any modifications or amendments to the agenda by board members? Seeing none, the agenda is passed. The next item on our agenda is going to be our focus on staff, students, and the community. At this time, I'd like to turn this over to Dr. Bishop.
Thank you, Madam President. This evening, we would like to take a moment to recognize 4 individuals who have achieved National Board Certification. National Board Certification was designed to develop, retain, and recognize accomplished teachers and to generate ongoing improvements in schools nationwide. It is the most respected professional certification available in K-12 education. It actually is now pre-K, so pre-K teachers can also get board certified. It's a new program. Because we are working remotely right now and are unable to ask these individuals to say a few words about themselves, we have asked their principals and colleagues to tell you a little bit about them. Janelle Fay is currently on staff at West High School as an English teacher and technology coordinator. She has experience teaching journalism, debate, business education, and middle school social studies. Janelle is a passionate educator who strives to make every lesson engaging and relevant to her students, consistently evaluating and revising her curriculum. Students leave her class inspired to be global citizens, and she equips them with life skills to do so. She was a BP Teacher of Excellence a few years ago as well. Janelle is an essential member of the West High staff, and we are all proud of her National Board certification. Chris Hendrickson is currently a 1st and 2nd grade teacher at Chinook Elementary School in the open optional program. He was actually the 2018 BP Teacher of the Year. It may look familiar to you. Chris leads with caring and kindness. He is a respected leader among the school staff and a willing resource for SEL, or social emotional learning. He supports other staff in SEL, implementation in class, and staff meetings and professional development activities. He also supports other educators during district level SEL trainings. His appointment to the National SEL Board is a testament to his dedication and professional knowledge in how critical SEL is to the school environment. In 2019, Chris took his SEL experience to the National ESSA Conference as a presenter in Kansas City. His ideas were also published in the book, Creating Social Emotional Learning Environments. His dedication and work in the open optional program is highly respected by his peers and parents. and he's a valued member of the entire Chinook community. Congratulations to Chris. Erin Hamilton is on staff at Service High School. She educated and led other service counselors in developing and implementing a comprehensive framework for school counseling in her school. Her focus is to deliver a program that emphasizes improving student outcomes. For the last 3 years, Erin has worked for many hours outlining the components of a school counseling program integral to the school's academic mission. This program will have a significant positive impact on student achievement, attendance, and discipline. Because of her work, Service has become the first in ASD to be designated a recognizing American counseling program. And finally, Brenda Council. Brenda is an exemplary teacher and now counselor at Northwood Elementary School. She sees each student as an individual and wants to ensure we are doing the best for each one. She's dedicated to strong relationships with her students and families and epitomizes going above and beyond. Brenda truly cares about the profession, always being a model for other staff. ASD has many dedicated educators who have gone above and beyond to accomplish this distinguished certification in their field. Thank you for your passion and dedication to these 4 educators, as well as the many, many National Board certified teachers in Anchorage School District. If the board isn't familiar, the national certification is a coveted accomplishment. It is definitely not a popularity contest. These teachers prepare lessons, answer questions, and are audited by like peers. It is a very, very rigorous program, and I'm so proud to have 4 new members in ASD. Thank you for being great.
Thank you, Dr. Bishop, and congratulations to our teachers. And just it is an honor to have staff that continue to grow like that and stay right here. So thank you. Next up on the agenda is our board conference and committee reports. Just so the public that's listening in knows, we did have our board reorganization. So we have some new committee chairs. And so I will just reach out to each one of them here to give a quick update on where their next things are heading. And so I'll start with finance and board member Morissette.
Yes, so finance will be meeting at before our next board meeting on the 26th from 3:30 to 4:30. I believe that there will be more information on our budget and what we are looking at in the future with our care money.
Thank you. Our communications committee chair is board member Margot Bellamy.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yes, our next meeting, we have not met since, our last meeting, which I think was early March. However, our next meeting will be next week, the 19th, I believe. And we already have our community update that I actually sent that out to Community Council, the Federation of Community Council already, but that is available to our board members as well. So our next meeting will start looking at looking at several items. None are very crucial, but just to kind of get ourselves on track for moving forward. Thank you.
Thank you. And our third committee, our governance committee, board member Alicia Hildy.
Thank you. Our next meeting is on May 19th, right before communications at 3:30. And you can call in and listen to that meeting. We'll have 2 finance-based policies we're reviewing, and then going over kind of like we haven't met since February, so there's just a little bit of a list to work through and get things scheduled and assigned to committee members. And then also working on the superintendent annual evaluation.
Thank you for that. Did any board members have any questions of the committees? All right, not seeing any hands raised, I'll go ahead and keep moving on through our agenda. Next up, we have our goal monitoring, and it's our ASD student engagement, the COVID-19 education for all. And at this point, I will turn this over to Dr. Bishop.
Thank you, Madam President. And I wanted to share This is the second week. We're bringing you some outcome monitoring with distance learning. And at this time, I have also requested Mark to assist in presenting the main corpus of the data. He and his team have been receiving the data and discussing it. And we both will be available to answer the questions, but I've asked him to just share the data initially with you. And just being that we were in different meetings this week, and he is square on it right now. So please, Dr. Stock.
Thank you, Dr. Bishop, and good evening, board. So it's a pleasure tonight to give you the next installment of some engagement data. As you know, we've been working on outcome monitoring, and as you know, through the pandemic, we don't have standard testing and other instruments that we use for outcome monitoring. So at this time, we've kind of resorted to doing some engagement monitoring and trying to provide you some looks at how students are doing, at least as far as what I would call a fairly rudimentary look at are students actually logging on and are they doing their work? So this first slide is an example of middle school engagement, and we use the Apex platform for this in English, language arts, and math. And you'll notice that there's two components here. There's what we called week 1 and 2 combined, and then week 3, 4, and 5 in a day or two into the next week. And so if you look at that in blue, you see the first set and you see green the second. So if we just look at, for example, 6th grade, you'll see that there were 77.69% of the students logged on at the beginning. But you'll see in our last installment over the last few weeks, we're up to 83.51%. As far as activities completed, I want to point out that these activities that they're working through in Apex, this is a percentage of students who are enrolled, not logged in. So that's why you'll generally see the activities completed always being a bit lower than those that are enrolled, because some of the students didn't log in that week. So you'll see that's basically growth. You'll see that whereas in most cases you might expect things to start dwindling off, as far as middle school engagement, that has not happened. In fact, the last few weeks it has actually gone up. And I think I could say a few things that would attribute that to. One hypothesis is that the middle school, you remember, were late in getting their devices. They weren't late, but they were behind the high school, right? We prioritized seniors first and then worked our way through the high school. And so the middle school students, in the very beginning of our week 1 and 2, some of those students were still getting their devices, still getting their hotspots. And so that could be one contributing factor. Next slide. This one takes a look at Canvas, and then Canvas is where we house the social studies and science content. And so you'll see that the numbers were very low in the beginning. You'll see, for example, 8th grade, let's take, you'll see there were 85% logged in, 58% work submitted. But you'll see as we move over, again, you'll see nice increases in folks logging in, and you'll see work being submitted at higher levels. Now, one of the reasons why this might be lower than the Apex is that there were a number of students who were only asked to do the ELA and the math because they were behind and they really wanted them to catch up. So instead of having students trying to cover 4 subjects, there were teachers working with students in collaborative teams at the middle level trying to get kids to focus in on things that they were well behind in. So you'll see that there's less students who logged into social studies and science. Another contributing reason for this is that the students, teachers worked first on getting the ELA and math logged in and set up and all those courses running because those were our priorities. And then we began to load the social studies and science. So there was a bit of a lag there, not only in devices, but also in actually populating those course shells. So that's one of those contributing reasons. But again, nice increases, as you see. Next
we have a
slide.
Question, Mark, if we can answer the questions, and I'll pay attention to hands
Okay, because
raised.
I can only see a few faces,
Yep.
so thank
Yeah.
you.
A member Hildy, please.
Sorry, I'm just trying to figure out the enrollment. So I'm watching that number on the first one, at the English one, the enrollment decreased. But is that like all the 7th graders in the district? Is that the numbers we're seeing? Or I guess I don't understand who are these, who's enrolled? Is it everybody, or is it just how they got enrolled?
So everyone, yeah, all the students that were on the student rolls were put in there, but this, you'll see a lot less sixth graders because a lot of our sixth graders are in elementary schools. So that's the difference between sixth and seventh in terms of the numbers enrolled. And so those are just the basic enrollment numbers. And that's why the percentages can look different, because there might be a student showing up on the enrollment that was logged into all of the courses, and yet the teachers are only asking them to go in and work and log in and submit work only in ELA and math because of that was a priority. Did that answer your question? Okay.
And then Board Member Mitchell also has her hand raised as well.
And is it better to raise our hands electronically or physically, or both?
For me, I look at the little blue hands on the right-hand side because I can't see all the board members, but I can see all the names.
Okay, yeah. So I had a question. I'd raised my hand on the previous slide on the Apex, for the middle schoolers. If you could go back to that, Mark.
We're there.
Okay. So I the same question as Member Hildy asked. Weeks 1 and 2, we had 874 sixth graders enrolled, and as of May 11th, we had 837 sixth graders enrolled. And we see a similar, not as drastic, but from 7th grade, we had the number enrolled go from 3015 to 2999, and in 8th grade, it went from 2959 to 2946. Is that because students completed the coursework for the year? Were they considered not enrolled in those courses at that point anymore? Or did we see a bunch of 6th grade parents unenroll their kids to finish them off at home for the year? Why did the enrollment from weeks 1 and 2 drop so much as a follow-up?
Madam President, to Member Mitchell, my best guess on that is that these are students who actually have not enrolled. They have actually either unenrolled and went into a different homeschool environment, or they left the state, or they unenrolled from school.
These students who also, what we did was roll over all the kids. And if this was an inappropriate placement for them, because they needed more supports, they might be served in a different way and unenrolled in that particular course on APEX. So some of our students that need additional supports may have been unenrolled in this course. So it's all of the above, really. And if you'd like us to track down the names of the students difference, we can do that. But there's myriad of things. Some went to Florida Virtual, as Dr. Sox stated. Some enrolled in a different program in ASD that was more appropriate for their continued learning. And others really just decided to be done.
And for some students who do Florida Virtual, in many cases, if they didn't take it as a complete program, if they went to Alaska Learns to get their Florida Virtual, they could have stayed enrolled as a student here and yet be doing something, strictly through them, depending on what the parents wanted to do. So this next slide talks about high school engagement, and in this case, you'll see very similar, but similar gains. You'll notice some really nice numbers there that show the difference between the first go round and the second go round. And again, not quite as many, because our high school students got their devices first if they were not available to have those instruments, but those came to them quickly. They got those, so you'll see that the numbers are definitely higher. And there's also more accountability at high school because of the credit-bearing classes and so on that had students engaged at a pretty quick level there. So now we move from engagement to our first look at what I would call an output. It's not really an outcome because it's not really measuring learning. It's really measuring the grades that students are getting in those cases. So what you'll see here is across the top, it says the percentage of marks earned. And I need to explain this because the percentage you see here are not students. These are marks. So for example, let's take the blue line for 9th grade 2019. So you'll see there were 31.88% of the students who got, or 31.88% A's earned. So if let's say we had, for example, 3,000 9th graders. if they were all taking 5 classes each, that would be 15,000 courses they could take. Of those 15,000 potential marks or grades, 31.88% of those marks were A's. So it's not counting students getting A's, it's counting the total numbers of A's that were earned by the freshman class in 2019 in April. That's what they had on their books at that time. So what this chart's trying to show you is, so there was a big fear that grades were going to tank horribly based on the pandemic. So if you drop to 2020 April, you'll see that there were 28.25% A's earned by the freshman class. So a little bit of a 2% drop. Let's go over to the C's. 2019 in April, there were 16.48% of all the marks earned were C's. If you go down to 2020 of April, 16% of all the marks by freshmen are C's. So it's kind of an interesting thing, but as you go through all these, you don't have to look at every single one, but you'll see a similar pattern in about all the charts I'm going to show you, which is that there's about a 2 to a 4% slide. I'm guessing that some of our students with B's were getting more C's, some with C's got a few more D's, and so on. So it's about a 2 to 4% differential, and just no matter how you slice it in most of those. So anyway, I think the fears that we had that there was going to be a massive problem with our students earning their grades for credit-bearing classes is not really panning out, although it is a little bit of a decrease. So the next one here, one of the questions that people ask, and this is one of our big, we're kind of hunkering down on these equity questions now, because we know there's not a huge inequity in terms of grade distributions across all students, but let's take a look at poverty and its impact. And so same example here, you will see 36.39% of our non-EDS, or our students who are not in a poverty category, were earning A's. And you'll see this year at the same time period in April, 34.25% with A's. If you track that across, you'll see a very similar phenomenon with EDS and non-EDS, which is those who are behind last year, 2019, the same number of F's, A's, B's, C's are being earned, with one exception. You do see about a 4+% difference on the F's. So there is this slide, that 2 to 4% slide that we've been referring to. So that's the EDS. Now this next one is really, really busy on purpose, so just kind of sit with it for a minute. Don't let it distract you too bad. But what this is we took all the ethnic groups. So we wanted to look and see how equity is going in terms of both last year to this year, but then also equity among the groups. And so we'll just take, let's take Hispanic ethnic group, and you'll see that's the pink line to follow across. So in 2019, let's switch over and take a look at D's this time. So in the Hispanic category, 2019, there were 11.87% of those students getting D's in high school. You go down to the bottom, Hispanic, 11.67% D's this year. So again, that one's fairly equitable, but if you look across, you're going to find the same 2 to 4% slide across the board in terms of marks earned. And so whatever particular group you're the most interested in, if you kind of follow the colors, you can see the same patterns. So pretty much across the board, a 2 to 4% difference as well regarding ethnic groups. So that's kind of the end. So I'll just stop with a couple of summary statements. And that is, I don't know what your expectations were with regards to the pandemic with grades. I don't know always what the community's expectations were with regard to grades, but I can say this, that some of the fears and concerns across this nation about first access, and we don't see a problem here of a huge gap in terms of access, not with equity, not with poverty, not with ethnicity. So I think some of the differences that may have existed previously last year in terms of performance still exist yet today. So it's not like there was a huge impact with that regard in terms of at least engagement and grades. Now, I guess I want to make a disclaimer. We all know that in this particular environment, we can't attribute grades directly to student learning, right? I mean, there's a difference between the grades kids may have earned in this in regards to, say, a student's reading score. The actual impact on this is probably not going to be known till fall, where we really get a chance to go in and look at assessments where we can measure outcomes and look at summer loss combined with pandemic loss to see what kind of changes there are in terms of outcomes among students. So that's the report, and I guess at this time we'll turn it over to Dr. Bishop and any questions you might have.
Actually, I think Elisa does have, President Vacalis does have some questions, so we'll do our best in answering them.
All right, the first one I have in the queue is Board Member Star Marzette.
So I don't want to monopolize it, and I have a couple of questions so I can spread them out. But the first one is, in Canvas, when I look at it being a little bit different than APEX, was that due maybe, I've heard a lot of, like from parents even, that it was harder to use. So to just take individuals longer time to figure it out, to adjust, whatever. And by the look of things, I mean, it looks like they were able to grasp that. But I was just wondering if that was one of the issues as far as the numbers between APEX and Canvas.
Great question, President, through to Star. The Apex content, and you may have noticed a very subtle difference in language. You'll notice on some of the Apex ones, we use the phrase activity completed. But if you looked at the Canvas ones, it says work submitted. The reason those languages were used is very different, because in Apex is a very structured, scope and sequenced program that is already structured and in place. It's full of small activities. Kids do the activity, they take a little quiz, they move on. If they're struggling, it might come back and review a piece, but it's all built into the scope and sequence of the instrument. In Canvas, we populate it with content. Teachers have the abilities to go into Canvas and to add their own assignments, add activities, add work, take work away. So in terms of students having challenges with manipulating the content, I think there are very real differences between Apex, which is a very small base, structured, sequenced kind of a thing, which is probably, once you get the hang of it, easier to follow, versus different teachers offering different materials and curriculum and putting different things inside the course shell. And so, Dr. Bishop, if there's anything else you want to add to that, you have experience as well.
Yeah, that's pretty set. It's probably more predictable, and kids probably do figure it out. It's actually a online curriculum that's been around for 20 years, so they figured out those things where the Canvas is a more authentically created course, and sometimes kids didn't know specifically, they might have needed more help. So I don't necessarily think it's actually Canvas itself. It might just be understanding what they were supposed to do, and we'll just get better at that piece.
Yes.
All right, Star, I'll have you hold your next question so I can get one from Board Member Hildy.
Oh, thank you. So we saw some of the groups that hadn't gotten as engaged as we'd like to see. How is it working for targeting those students for summer school, or is it the push for all kids getting into summer school? I guess what do you think that might look like, and what potential gains you might expect from students who do that summer school? Can they make up 3 months in those 4 weeks? I don't know.
Well, through the president to Member Hildy, what I could say to that is we do have our support teams really working hard to work with the families and the students. So for example, the ELL program through Director Garby and the migrant program through Director Brown, those folks have teams of people that are working with their populations, and they are working and they're trying to recruit students into summer. They're actually calling the families and working on trying to touch base and support them. So I think there's at least there is an effort to try to engage at that level and get them in there. How much work people can make up, it just depends. Later on, there may be some discussions about some of the summer options that we have, but there's some effort. The 4-week high school extension, which is pretty much what we're talking about right now, that allows 4 weeks for them to make up work if they've got still things that are hanging out there. Is that enough? I suppose for some it's never enough, and for some they're only going to need a week, and then they're done.
To the real short, we are focusing and doing personal invites to some kids with personal supports, if you will, to assist with that, because there's quite a bit. And although I just want to go back to one thing that Mark mentioned in regard to, it was good to see access. And one of the things that we're working on that we did receive, Mark and his team received back, was that even though I might have one computer, I have access, but when I have 3 kids, it's really difficult for them to do their homework and me to work all on the same computer. So we're thinking about those types of things as well, and assisting in redeploying additional resources, whether they're capital resources or actually kind of somebody sitting and going, how to do a coach? Did you get that done today? And some kids just, that might be what they need. So it'll be a more targeted approach.
Thank you. Board Member Bellamy has a question.
Get your mute again.
And I had a good question. Anyway, thank you. So my question has to do with resource, just right where you left off, Dr. Bishop. So does every student in grades 6 through 12 who needs a computer have a computer, a Chromebook, or did we distribute by families? I'm just trying to figure out, because there was some in the chart, Dr. Stock, there were some that had no grades, and it may be that they hadn't ever logged in.
Okay.
So I'm just trying to figure out what does a resource look like for for kids.
That's a great question. I'll have Mark answer what those no marks mean. And we laughed today. It's not his mother talking. But,
I've heard no Mark a lot in my life, so gave me the heebie-jeebies when I saw that. No, so the reason there's a category called no marks is that we have many students at the high school level who take an independent study class, and they may be given a grade, but they're not, it's in a different format, and they're not in there as an enrolled student because they're taking something independently that's completely different. So they aren't logging in, they aren't taking those activities, they aren't getting a grade or a mark in that particular course, so it shows up as a no mark. We also have students who are in late arrival, early dismissal status who are assigned to a class, rolled into that one when all the Canvas work rolls all those students into a roll, and they're counted there, but they're not graded for that, but that's an attendance function or a way that they're tracking them, but it's not given a grade, so they show up as a no mark. And the third category is one of teacher aides, where students in the high school who are serving as a teacher aide are populated in one of those, but they're not getting a grade for that, and they're not turning in assignments, they're not showing up there, they show up as a no mark. So that's why you see that. As far as devices, I'm sorry, Dr. Bishop, you were going to speak. You're muted.
Sorry, Mike Fleckenstein is on, and he can answer that question.
Good evening. Yes. So early on, there was some misinformation about how many devices we had available for folks, and I think there was still some of that out there circulating around as families were talking with each other. To be really clear, and have made sure that's gone out a couple of times, we have devices for families if they need them. And so, for instance, there was a family that was struggling last week that had one device for the parent and one device for a kid, but they had kids at all levels. And so we sent 3 more devices out to them with the help of our operations team through that Stuber program. And so if there are people that need devices, we are happy to get those out, and we are still deploying several devices every day individually to students.
And is that contact through 742 help?
Absolutely.
Okay. Thank you.
All right, I'm going to insert a quick question, then I'm going to get back to Star, who I know has more questions as well. At the beginning of the slides, you have another your far right column, which is like an activity submitted. Is that on average, and I know the programs and the individual class contents can be a little different, is that one activity submitted where they could have had 5 that were available or due that week, or what is that actually measuring?
Madam President, it's just measuring just that. It's just that they submitted an activity. So it doesn't differentiate 1 versus 2 versus 3 because we don't know how many a teacher wanted assigned or didn't. So it's just trying to get a little bit closer to, okay, I logged on. Did I submit anything? And so it's a very rudimentary measure of that. That's why grades are a better measure of the actual output, but at least it's a little closer to engagement. I know you checked in, I know you submitted something, and then the grade represents, are you submitting enough to keep up with your marks? And for the most part, with a 2 to 4% slide, it looks like a number of students are keeping up, at least at the level they did last year.
Thank you. Board Member Marcette?
So, and this hypothetical question, I guess, because we probably don't even know yet, but, when we think about elementary, which I think, given that they've had some activities, they've had some interactions, I think there's probably been more, and I don't know if we even have the numbers, but I wonder, elementary students, I wonder how many of them have logged in or participated or whatever. But my question is, when we talk about going back and doing assessments when the kids come back to school, part of the thing that I've been reading, especially, and Dina Mitchell has provided some information too, is those elementary grades that a lot of those kids are going to be facing, being in isolation and being separated. There's going to be some real mental health need there. And I'm just wondering, when we talk about assessments, do we do that as soon as they come in, or, are we looking at maybe giving them a couple of weeks to adjust? I mean, I don't know what the plan is. You guys might even know the plan, but I'm just wondering if you've had a chance to even think about that.
Great question.
Go ahead.
And we really are focused, even at this time, on SEL and taking care of students. And so that's first and foremost on our minds. And the assessments that would be provided when kids are back really don't happen when we wait till kids get back and get routine and things like that to see how they're doing. So that's further down even in the thinking. We're not necessarily that's the first thing that we're going to jump on, because certainly the social emotional learning part is part of the learning, and that's been a focus of ours right now as we're doing this as well.
Can I ask one follow-on question?
Of course.
Because I don't see any hands raised. So one of the things, now that we have this, we're going to have this care money, are we looking at putting any mental health individuals, counselors, whatever, are we going to look to increase any of that kind of need or help in our schools? starting out for the school year to identify and to help kids get readjusted?
To the president, Member Marset, yes, there's some significant discussions going on in our departments about the use of some of our title funds and other things. Some of the schools that are most at need, there's some significant planning going on right now about increasing the emotional supports, the behavioral supports, and all those things that would support emotional learning and behavior. We do anticipate it being a rough transition for some coming out of different environments back to school. So yes, we have that in our plans on the title side. But as far as the other pieces, those we'll have to work through. But yes, that's right now is on our minds for sure. The SEL part and the trauma that kids have faced and coming back to school.
I just don't want us to forget about, I'm sorry, I just didn't want us to forget about, I mean, I know we are Title I schools and they kind of beef up on things, but when we look at our other schools, that don't have Title I funds, those kids have needs also. And I just want to make sure that because they're not Title I, that we don't look to provide them the support that they need also. And I know you guys will, but I just have to say that.
We can do a presentation. We have several different things going on. We didn't expect it to share during this time, but partners, we're partnering with Volunteers of America through our equity department and looking at having Volunteers of America provide counseling support and things like that in our schools as well, and understanding the guardrail that was suggested, not totally finished off, but we have lots of loose ends going.
And that grades are important. I mean, I understand that, but I just always have to advocate for mental health because that's what we do. Thank you, Dr. Bishop. Thank you, Mark. Scott.
Thank you to all the board members for all of your questions. And I'm sure that the superintendent, if you guys get a chance to take a look at the presentation a bit later, if you still do have any questions, go ahead and email them in. I'm sure they would be, happy to respond. So we're going to go ahead and keep moving on. The next item in our agenda is public testimony. However, the last report that I got did not have anybody requesting to call in, but I just wanted to verify that with our board secretary who helps coordinate that with Katie. Can you just confirm that I'm still on track with that?
Correct, Madam President. There's no public testimony signed up.
Okay, thank you. The next item on our agenda is the superintendent update. And so I will go ahead and pass this back.
All right, thank you.
And the update today, I moved my boom thing down. Hopefully I won't crackle as much as before. We have quite a bit of pieces of information for you that had been requested at prior board meetings, and as well as new information that we'd like to share with you moving forward. And with that, I'm going to start with just the bond update. There was a request in regard to just having some information and understanding the voter turnout and the voter, feelings towards this and disposition of our recently successful bond. I'll turn that over to Alan Brown. Thank you.
Good evening, Madam Chair, ladies and gentlemen of the board. I'm Alan Brown. I'm the Director of Communications at ASD. We commissioned a survey at the beginning of May through a local research company, Hayes Research, and they surveyed a total of 1,049 election voters for this last election. And our objective was kind of threefold. And we wanted to get a sense of sort of voter reasoning on how they voted. We wanted to gauge voters' attitudes towards the bond package as a whole, the different components on it. And we also wanted to kind of gauge and assess the effectiveness of the ASD bond campaign that really took off in February in earnest and covered a variety of different communication modes. So just what we have here is a very brief snapshot of some of the high points We'll make sure that the full results are posted for you on Board Connect at the end of the week. The full package is about 67 pages when you add all the open-ended comments and so forth. But just a couple of high points. The first thing to point out is that 60% of the respondents of this survey said that they voted for the bond. And really conveniently, that coincides very, very nicely with the 59% yes vote in April. So I think that kind of adds some validity to this survey, survey population a little bit. Looking at some of the reasons why the survey respondents voted yes, 43% said that they support schools and education. And that was an open-ended question. So there's a variety of comments, but as they sort of grouped their respondents, 43% fell into this category. And then the other major portion falls into the category of just understanding the importance of the bond projects and recognizing that they were pretty essential. And as I gauged through and looked through some of the comments in those categories, there were a lot of comments and acknowledgement about how important earthquake repair was. Those comments were very, very common throughout the open-ended section. And there were also a number of interesting comments about how important it is for the construction jobs to help boost the economy right now too. So I just wanted to point out some of those comments were there deeper into the survey. And moving on to some of the no votes, some of the reasons for that, 51% said that they didn't think that the funds were used properly or that all that money wasn't necessary. That was a real interesting range of responses there. And then, of course, 31% had concerns with taxes or that they couldn't afford it. An interesting point that we noted that we're maybe a little bit, there's a couple of answers here that we were a little surprised of, and 71% saying that their vote really wasn't influenced by any specific project. We put that question on the bond survey just to sort of see if they were influenced by any projects that weren't directly related to earthquake recovery. And it doesn't appear that that was a major factor according to this survey. Another thing that we thought was a little bit surprising is that the 2-year bond package that we marketed so heavily or advertised so heavily as being a good selling point, that didn't seem to influence a lot of folks' votes. It's sort of our early assessment, I think, is that I think folks had their minds made up and kind of knew that they were for it or against it, and that the 2-year bond just didn't seem like it was that much of a factor. Kind of shifting gears a little bit to our bond campaign, one of the I guess the shining star or something that jumped out is that of the 1,049 respondents, 60% of them acknowledged that they received a bond information card in the mail. We sent out 3 iterations of that bond card, different versions highlighting different aspects of the bond, and that reached a total of about close to 150,000 people over those 3 iterations, because we sent out about 47,000 each time. So it was uplifting to see that such a large number acknowledged that as being a good source. But in addition to that, we also noticed that the other communications channels that we used, radio, internet advertising, newspaper, social media, all of those had a pretty solid showing in terms of people recognizing that they received information about the bond campaign from that. So that was encouraging sort of moving forward here for a couple of years. I think we've maybe established a good framework that we can build on for 2 years from now when we get to propose another one. And then finally, we asked a question just to see if there was any correlation to political affiliation in the way folks were voting. And as you can see there really wasn't. I think the political affiliations were relatively evenly marked. We didn't really see any particular trends, although it was interesting to see the number of independents that were identified in this campaign, in this survey. So that was just a real quick snapshot. Again, we'll provide the full results for your perusal at the end of the week. Subject to any questions, I believe I'll be followed by Mr. Vikalis.
Actually, Alan, I just want to say thank you again for having such a successful campaign, and for the communications committee as well. And you had great music playing behind you. It was a lovely, someone must be practicing violin.
Oh, I was wondering if that was going to come through. Yes, it's Tuesday evening.
It was beautiful.
My 11-year-old is working on her violin right now, so that's good timing. Thank you for noticing. She'll be excited.
All right, Madam President, board members, and Superintendent. A couple of weeks ago, you received a very brief update in board docs regarding FEMA recovery efforts. And what I'd like to do is just reiterate those and then go on to more areas for you, just to give you a complete update of where we are. So as you do know, we did receive our insurance claim from FM Global for the tune of about $515,583. And that was associated with water damage because of sprinkler head breakage. In addition to that, we did file for Category A damages through FEMA. And just as a reminder, those are debris removal efforts. And that was for $534,377. That was approved by FEMA. And the district did sign the grant agreement. We're just waiting for the funding. And that was quite a few months ago. And in addition to that, on Category B, there's two different types of Category B. One is relocation expenses. And as you know, we did move a lot of students from Eagle River Elementary as well as Gruning to other locations. And we captured the cost on that. That was $658,165 and change. FEMA did approve that, and the district did sign off on the obligation document, but the funds have not been received yet. In addition to that, there's also a Category B, Category B protective measures. As you know, there was an awful lot of protective measures the district had to take from the time of the incident, the earthquake, until we got kids back into school to make the schools safe, and also to protect the assets themselves, the schools. We captured the cost for that. That was $5,141,608. In addition to that, the district did file for that. And because of the dollar amount, and the more you actually file for, the longer it takes. And in this particular case, this has been in the hopper now for about 3.5 months, waiting a final determination on it. It just takes time. At each level, they ask different questions. We answer them successfully. It's been quite a while since they've asked us any questions. So we're assuming that will be approved by FEMA shortly. And then again, the district, of course, would sign that grant. Now, the good thing about the Category A and Category Bs, as a reminder, is that there's no obtained and maintained insurance requirement associated with those. The next category is Category E. And there's two elements to Category E. Category E is district-wide content loss. The district did file for that to the tune of $268,974 and change. FEMA did approve that. However, the district has not signed off on that yet because that does have an obtain and maintain insurance requirement. And until that is resolved, the district will not be signing off on that particular grant obligation. In addition to that particular Category E, there's also the large Category E, which was facilities. We have 90 facilities that were damaged to the tune of $54,176,233. We are in the process of accounting for all of that. And one of the issues with a Category E of this nature, since you have 90 different projects, schools, you have multiple steps. And so once one step is done for one school, it goes all the way through the process, gets approved, comes back, then you take the next step. So if you can imagine taking about 5 or 6 steps that has to go all the way through the process, come back before you can enter into the next step for 90 schools, you can imagine it takes quite a while. So just about every one of the schools is in some point in that process right now. Now, I kept mentioning about the obtain and maintain insurance requirements. Obviously, if this 54,176,000 is approved, then it does have an insurance requirement with it, the obtain and maintain. So in talking about insurance quotes, in that brief synopsis that was sent in board docs, I did mention in there that we did receive quotes. As you remember, we've been months and months trying to get quotes. The first iteration, we had very few folks that actually provided quotes. They were non-bindable quotes, the 4 that did provide, and then there was a bunch that declined to apply or give us any quotes. So we asked our brokers to go back again, because in order to show due diligence to try to get a waiver, we have to prove that we did everything we possibly could to get and obtain quotes. So for the next go around, what I'd asked them to do was give quotes on a 5%, 10%, 15, 20, and 25% deductible. The reason for that was twofold. One was to hopefully enhance competition amongst insurance companies so that they would participate in at least giving us some quotes. The second reason was to give us more information in which to make a decision at some point about whether we should obtain insurance or not. And again, an awful lot of that depends on a waiver. One of the things that's interesting about the quotes that we received is that the one that gave us a bindable quote for the closest amount, and by the way, there were 17 declinations, and there was 5 that actually quoted. 2 of the 5 were non-bindable quotes. 2 of them were bindable. And then the one big one that we got from Lloyd's of London was for 50 million. We'd requested 55 million, but they would only insure us for 50 million. So just to let you know, in general terms, what that would cost, at a 5% deductible for $50 million, that would basically be $5 million a year. So as you can see, in 10 years, you start losing money because you've already captured the money you got from FEMA, and then you start losing. If you looked at the 25% deductible for $50 million, that's $4,450,000 a year. Again, not much difference between the $5 million and the $450,000. And in 11.23 years, you basically would start losing money because you'd have paid the $50 million in total. So that brings to the next step, waivers. The district has submitted a waiver now that we've received all of this information. I think it was a real good effort, an awful lot of meat in it, a lot of examples, a lot of attachments, proving the point. So it goes to the director of insurance, and hopefully she will give a determination and support our request to FEMA for a waiver. She could basically decline. She could recommend a partial waiver, or she could recommend a full waiver. I've requested that we have a teleconference with her before she makes a determination, and she has indicated that she should make a determination sometime this week. So that's where we are in the waiver request. The other item that I'd like to bring you up to speed on is that we have applied for a 404 grant, which is a state-managed grant program, and there's no strings attached to it other than your normal grant requirements, but there is no obtain and maintain insurance. We submitted 5 grants requests, and we've been, even though we have not been told officially, 2 of our grant requests, 2 of our projects have come in relatively high in the scoring. So it depends on how much money they have available to put towards it, would basically determine how much, whether they'd get down and fund some of our grants. But if they don't, if they only fund 1 or 2, then we can submit those again during the next grant period. So that pretty much covers that, except for we do have a number of grants that we're working with FEMA on right now. Those are 406 grants. And the unfortunate thing about a 406 grant, it also has an obtain and maintain insurance requirement. Again, if we can get a waiver, then we'd also request that we apply that waiver to these particular grants. And there's about 5 different projects that we've got for that. So that concludes the FEMA update regarding the earthquake. The only other thing that I'd like to mention real quick is the pandemic. So as a result of the pandemic, some costs are eligible for reimbursement through FEMA. The unfortunate or fortunate thing, depending on how you look at it, is that you can not supplant other federal monies that have basically also been dedicated to pandemic recovery efforts, such as the CARES program. Within the CARES program, if you look at the definition and some of the things that's covered, you'll see that an awful lot of our expenditures fall under those categories. But what we don't know, of course, is what we don't know. We don't know how long this will last, and we don't know what the final numbers will look like as far as what our costs are. We know that we've racked up quite a few costs, especially in an awful lot of the equipment and stuff that we have provided to hospitals, first responders, and also to the EOC of the city and the health department. So we're just a wait and see. We are capturing all of the expenses that are capturable, and then we'll make a determination when it's closer to the end to figure out if we want to apply or not. That concludes my briefing.
All right. Thank you, George. And for the board, we can also get that into writing the different categories and things like that, just to have a summary. It was, I know, difficult to follow without a slide to review it with you. But quite a bit of information and quite a bit has happened, and it's a success to finally get the insurance information. And now George and his team are set to work with the city to go get that waiver. So it's a big move. Thank you, George. The next item is just an update on graduation. And of course, Kirsten Johnson and her team work diligently with schools and parents and kids and communications. Of course, Alan Brown was a key member with his team for the celebration, and totally acknowledging that we cannot redo what we've always done, but wanted to make it special. And Dr. Johnson and Alan have turned out this TV and radio schedule. So it is posted online. It's also on our app. This is in addition to the participation of the board as well as others to do the drive up graduations to get their items this week and next. But this is just the highlights that we're working with local radio and TV stations to really make it special. The next slide is really the iHeartRadio, and they're going to highlight a different school. What they have planned is the top 20 kids, having the kids read their graduation speeches. Really, really fun, dynamic all day long. They're going to talk about the kids and plug that into their station. So we're very, very thankful for our local partners and wanted to share that publicly, that's on our website. So we hopefully have the whole city celebrating our graduates. Just a little snapshot of some of the things that are on social media as well with the Spark account that they've designed. These are Bartlett kids in Bartlett and Middle College, and just has some information about them that we're pushing out, just what makes these kids, and again, at graduation, we do mini awards or have awards nights, have mini speeches, longer speeches. We're trying to recreate those just in another way. So this is just a mind's eye for you to see, as well as the public to see some of the amazing things that kids do and have done. This one is service highs. So a picture of the students in their regalia, as well as their senior pictures usually they do in a slideshow at awards night, but we're incorporating both of those. And moving on to the next topic is, it was brought up in our work session about what can we do about the summer slide. Additionally, in Dr. Stock's presentation on the outcomes monitoring, or really which would be kind of a monitoring of online learning and engagement right now, the best that we can. The team designed many summer learning opportunities, and some are very targeted with invites to specific kids. But the goal is really to minimize the summer slide that actually with our work session was called a 6-month slide, which is essentially that. We know that all grade levels, it's evidenced that when kids leave school and for the summer that they do have a regression, all kids do. And that is demonstrated through their fall assessments the next year. And then we catch them up and keep moving forward. It's especially critical, interestingly enough, in high school when seniors don't take math a senior year. That is highly critical when they get freshman year in college, they struggle in math. So we know that keeping the mind engaged is beneficial. Hence, we've really set out a robust summer school. The items that you're going to see here are the distance summer school options. And we are hoping that when we can get into smaller groups back in school in August timeline, that we would look to a face-to-face kind of a boot camp option, a reading boot camp, or a fast start, some of them are called, just to get our most needy kids that really need that additional support early on to be successful the first day of school. And these summer opportunities will be self-directed in the core subjects, and they are free to all students. Some students will get this postcard on the front. The other look of the postcard is the same information, but the back really goes into more detail and then also has a QR code that they can find additional information. And the back then spells out the high school, middle school, and elementary school options. And what we were really trying to stress to our parents is it really is we want this to fit with your summer school. So some of these might be duplicated, they might be redundant, but that is a good thing that if you want to do something online, but also have a paper pencil packet, that is okay. When you go on your trip in your camper or around the campfire or, just in the middle of the day or at breakfast, have a seat and sit down and do this one thing for me to have parents engage with their children. Very, very nicely, we have a few comments from the parents who have been using the paper and packet pencil packets, and they're really happy about them. We liken them to those big fat books that you can buy. I think they're on sale at Costco now about what to know in this grade level. And they really have content as well as games and activities and crossword puzzles just to keep that mind active. And that's what we really want to have happen with our kiddos. Again, we are reaching out through Tidal and Migrant Ed and Indian Ed and all of those sometimes student groups that struggle a little bit to get caught up and might need a little additional supports. We're going to be there to help them. And we're rolling that out just so to be able to do that. But if kids just want to get ahead, which they do, many kids like to take courses and get ahead so they can free up their schedules. We're doing that as well. We are going to become very comfortable with blended online learning, having it happen at home, moving it into school, having it at home in moving into our new year. And speaking of our new year, I'll just talk about that a little bit. There's been some interest in, oh my goodness, what is this going to look like? And we certainly want to be prepared, and we are preparing. Again, we've said from the beginning that we prepare for the worst, but hope for the best. And this preparation has many different divisions and I guess risk factors and risk levels that will be placed. And the decision will be made at the time using the best medical evidence that we have in our state and the allowance that our state gives us to fire back up. And so we're going to bring those options to the board so that throughout the summer, and thank you for extending the board meetings through July, I believe that we will be needing them. So just to understand this is the Alaska Smart Start 2020. I had the opportunity to assist in its creation with a commissioner. And the top three boxes at the top are the risk levels. Those three boxes would really be set by the Department of Education and the Department of Health and Human Services. They will be based on the information about how do we re-enter. And the scientists will weigh in, as well as the state leaders will weigh in on that section. Those would typically then be our understanding of the parameters for which we enter school. And we would need to have parameters around each of those, whether it's a low risk environment, a medium risk, or a high risk. But I want to share with the board as well as with the greater community that low risk does not mean the way it used to be. Even with low risk, there will be a different precautions, things that we have learned in regard to minimizing any kind of virus or disease spread, whether that be COVID or any other flu. We do know better, and so we're going to behave better and act better in our schools, and we wanted our community to know that. So even if we go back to school, full classrooms, schools in school, some things might change, like passing times, number of kids in certain areas, lunch times, playground times. We really have to think about not only the cleanliness of the building, but situations for which we put kids together for the possibility of having a resurgence of the virus. But in the categories, when we do plan for each level, we'll have the conditions for learning, and then the other sections of the capacities for learning, and really what's the continuity of learning. And that's very, very important to understand that we could move in and out of any of these risk levels at any time during the year. And we could be going just fine in the fall and then have a 2-week off. And what we're planning for is for our teachers and our children and our families to be able to move in and out of school and online learning. So right now we're using the best knowledge that we have from our teachers who have taught, as well as different representatives from different groups, whether it's principals or AEA, planning with our teaching and learning to come up. The green and the red, I think we know, and we have that pretty well. That's our lane. We get those things. We've been doing them. But the yellow section where we're in and out is really, or maybe at half capacity, really is going to take some thought. It's a very complex issue, and we're thinking that through now with our best thoughts to bring that information to the board. And again, on the lower hand, right-hand corner is just in reference that any one community or any one school, possibly in different communities in Alaska, could move in and out of any of these risk levels in any one of those areas as well. And it's really built for everyone, but we would take this and lay it on top of the context of Anchorage and our schools and our capacity to do the work. And we're quite excited about it. It will involve some type of students continuing to be tied to their school, even if parents choose not to come back fully when we can. We want to continue to have parents choose ASD schools and continue to be connected. With this, we are, before teachers leave, we will determine a platform for which we would like their learning to be based and have their classes on that platform so that they can have it in class or out of class. They can be authentic courses and built by the teachers, or we could use set curriculum by curriculum makers such as Apex and Florida Virtual. Some of our teachers already take Florida Virtual curriculum. It's pretty pliable, if you will. They can take pieces and parts and drop it into Canvas now and send it off. So we want to build capacity in teachers to be able to plan and really deliver. Elementary will not be how it is now. It's not going to be just supplemental. It will actually be full coursework. So we're building muscle in that over the summer and working with teachers in preparation. So this is a really big deal, and just a one-sheeter to let you know that the planning has started to happen in all of these categories. And throughout the summer, we will bring this back to the board to share the updates and have the board input in what they believe the value and the vision of the community is at that time to move forward. In that, there are two caveats here. One is in regard to this as well, and member Marcette brought this up earlier in regard to board meetings as the risk levels change as well, rethinking board meetings and being able to as we're talking about this, to have maybe a blended board meeting, partially online and in the boardroom, and being able to gather again. We'll be working on that with the board. And then finally, the board did receive an email today from someone in charge of voting at West High School. And we have worked through the commissioner to be able to, our first day is August 16th, which just so happens to be the primary day where people would come into our schools, the general public. We want to be able to ensure the safety of everyone and our kids when they come to us, that it's clean and as best as we can get it with no outside really influences. So we do have permission to count August 16th. And this again depends on would we be in school or out of school anyway, but as an in-service day or a teacher work day, and kids can start on the 19th if that is a low risk time and we're able to get in the school. So I wanted to share that with the board. We did receive confirmation on that late last week, and we will bring that proposal to you to ensure that our voters are safe when they go to a specific spot, but that because the primary will be done in person, and that we would request that school actually start on August 19th. if it's in building. If it's not, time really doesn't matter because it's online. So those are other two updates. And I just want to leave you with a request as well in regard to teacher appreciation. It was a great week. We finished up. Thank you. We supported, the board administration supported our teachers and our community with a small meal ticket to purchase a meal, and that was with funds that for services that had to be canceled because we weren't in school through their in-services. So we really invested in our community as well as the people who are making learning happen right now. And so we'll just flip through this, just different ideas, although there are many different ways to celebrate. It's usually big, celebrations in school. We had some signs, free coffee for teachers at different coffee spots. Staff and PTA delivered items to teachers' doors, actually put placards outside their windows about being the best teacher. So we hope that our teachers felt supported while they're home educating kids, and then our parents as well, because our parents are partners in education with our students. So we did a large social media campaign as well. In closing, I just wanted to share just another appreciation. This is not a teacher, but Miss Knight has been with ASD for 47 years, and she is celebrating her retirement. So we wanted to highlight Joyce Knight from Gladys Woods this evening and thank her for her service to children in ASD for 47 years. So thank you. Madam President, that concludes my board report.
Thank you, Dr. Bishop. I do see one hand raised. Board Member Hildy.
Thank you. I just had a question about the paper packets. I know that it's a small percentage of students who don't have access to the internet, but I've heard from parents that they have the paper packets, but they don't have the ability to coach their child through it or even know if the answer is right, like to be able to grade it, especially at some of the little bit higher level, not maybe primary, but intermediate and early middle school. So going forward through the summer, that's going to be like 6 months with no feedback. I don't know if there's plans for the summer. I saw the paper and pencil packet, but that kid won't have any feedback if they don't have internet access, those kids. Mm-hmm. So I'm just wondering.
Yeah. So we, the new packets that are being mailed out actually do have the answer keys with them. So we're doing that, and it's whether they choose to or not have the packet. But we're also planning for follow-up, especially for very specific support when parents want that support to follow up and calls throughout the summer to check on kids. So I have to see which program kids are being placed into or entered into, their parent choice. But we did do the packets with the answer keys in them this time. Yeah, and it's going to be a very small packet first, and then if they desire more, it'll be a request, that notebook or that piece of card notebook that there'll be a placard card, if you will, that'll be sent, and they have to send it back if they request more, if they want to do more, or call our help number. So I'll give that feedback, and I'm sure they thought about that because there is a lot of like once a week calls, but I wasn't sure which system and which program it was in. But we have that geared up through Lexia. As well for once a week calls to just check in and say, hey, how are you doing? We're also looking into, and haven't really settled on anything, some kind of incentive program for kids that if you do this, you can earn something, and especially for our little ones that kind of see it at the library, a reading packet to see if we can do that. So those are some of the things that are still in the works with the teams putting these forward. And that's a great question. I'll follow up with that in the Board Connect this week. But there is a song that if you have just a couple of minutes, a student or teacher appreciation, sing a song to teachers. And if you like, we do have that now, and you could maybe take a break and stretch and listen to this lovely song that a student did for teachers. Would that be all right?
Sure, go for it.
A couple minutes, okay.
those who inspire us today, who always lend a helping hand to help show us the way. This song is for those who see their students through the tough part in the life's for that. We say thank you. You have made a difference. You have shaped our minds. You have changed the world, one child at a time. You have always been there in everything you do. I hope that you're as proud of me as I'm proud of you. This song is for those who heard the silent cries, who stepped in to wipe the tears from the children's eyes. For those of you who gave us a safe place to grow, a place to call home forever. Now we'll always know you have made a difference. You have shaped our minds. You have changed the world, one child at a time. You have always been there in everything you do. I hope that you're as proud of me as I am proud of you. 'Cause you have made a difference. You have shaped our minds. You have changed the world, one child at a time. You have always been there in everything you do. I hope that you're as proud of me as I am proud of you, proud of you.
All right. Good. And President Michaelis, Jenny Knutson did say that she could answer the question that I wasn't able to answer, if you'd like that right now.
Sure, that'd be wonderful. Thank you.
Okay. Dr. Knutson?
Okay, thank you. Just to answer the question about the paper packets, the answer keys are available for all parents, and we have a guide that goes with them. So it kind of walks parents through just a schedule of how you would use the paper packets and how you'd spread them out throughout the week so that you're not, cramming everything all at once, but you can kind of pace it out for learning. We'll also, through 742 Help, have people available. So if parents do have a problem and are struggling, they can call into that number, and we have specific people identified that could help talk them through and stuff like that. So trying to provide those wraparound supports if they need it. And they will be available for download for yourself, and we will be mailing them out to families that may not have that availability of printing things. I know I've also run into that myself over this spring, where we've run out of print cartridges and couldn't print stuff out. So that happens to a lot of people. So that will still happen to be able to support families as well.
Thank you. Looking at the hands that are raised in the queue, I saw that Board Member Donnelly had his hand up, but it came down again. So if you still had a question, you're welcome to ask it now. Are you good?
Madam President, I was just thinking about the November general election also. So that's something we need to be planning for. Thank you.
Of course. Thank you. Next up in the queue is Board Member Mitchell.
Yeah, I just wanted to confirm, are the summer school opportunities going to be compressed into a 4-week period, or are they able to extend it over a longer period? And I assume that since we can't do face-to-face, behind every online opportunity is a live teacher who can support that student?
Yes, that's a great question. For high school, the first option, which is just the continuation of this quarter, is only to June 30th. So that would end, but all other options do extend for longer periods of time. And the goal is to, yes, have teachers through the summer school with our choice options as well, and new credit, or is to have someone with the students.
Great, thank you.
Thank you, Nick. Next up, we have Board Member Bellamy.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I have just a couple of quick questions. So back to the bond survey, Mr. Brown, do we have any data on how, oh, there's the violinist. Hello. Do you have any data on how different areas within the city voted?
No, unfortunately, the bond survey results did not break it out by.
Okay. And then, Dr. Bishop, my next question has to do with groups in the city who might want to donate towards summer school or food, or do they still go through the 742 number, or is there, how are we doing that? I mean, I get calls about that often.
That would be the best place, because all coordination about all ASD is going to be funneled through that to give it to the right place. So that's great, and we would be happy to work with partners. That's wonderful.
Okay.
That's the first place to start, and from there, the person would be directed to a department head.
All right.
Thanks.
Next up in the queue, I have Board Member Marcette.
So I have a question. Is there any way, and I don't know if we can do this or not, but when ESY extended school year for our SPED students, are we going to be able to do anything with that or not?
Yes, we are doing ESY. And is Cindy Anderson online?
I am online.
All right. Could I ask you to assist me so I don't get it wrong?
Sure. So
Hi,
we are doing ESY the same way we have in the past, only distance. We're using the same dates. We've already hired staff, both teachers, teacher assistants. We have a counselor and an administrator on board, Roy Ruckstashel. So we are an highly experienced administrator, actually. And so we are ready to go with ESY. We'll be working through June and July with our students and doing it in distance. And we have a plan for it and ready to go.
Great, thank you. And member Mitchell reminded me about ESY for everyone is extended school year for students with IEPs. So thank you for that. We do often talk in acronyms. Too much.
All right, board members, are there any other questions? Ms. Bellamy?
Just the one. I'm just interested in how long are we going to be feeding kids?
That's a great question, and I'd like Tom Roth to jump in. Thank you.
Through the board president to Member Bellamy, thank you for the question. So right now, the majority of the school feeding sites we anticipate, based on current federal guidance, that we will be able to sustain feeding through the 30th of June to the end of the fiscal year.
Okay. Thank you. That would be at all locations? Current locations, or would that be modified?
Through the president, right now, the plan is to contract based on some modifications to USDA guidance. So the schools that have a population of students that exceed 50% free and reduced eligible, those are the schools that we'll be able to continue to support. But some schools that have a lower percentage, we're going to have to contract back from those fixed sites.
Okay. Okay.
And board members, Marcette has her hand up.
How are we doing on, have our numbers dropped off on participants taking free lunches and breakfast, or are they saying about the same, or have they increased, or where are we at with those numbers?
So through the president to Member Marcette, that's a great question. We have, as the weather has improved here in the last 2 weeks, we've actually seen a decrease in the number of students who are taking meals. Yeah, we did see a high point of around 14,000 several weeks ago, but yesterday, as an example, we had about 7,000 kids or 7,000 meals served.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Dr. Bishop, and to all of your team that has chimed in and contributed. That's been wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you. And sorry it's so choppy. It's just part of an online thing.
The way
right?
it is. Yep, exactly. All right, folks, moving on in our agenda, we have the consent agenda. And Ms. Bellamy.
Yes. Okay, Madam Chair, I move to approve the consent agenda. ASD Memorandum number 128, which is the personnel report. March 3rd, 2020, work session and regular session minutes. And March 17th, 2020, executive session minutes.
Second.
Thank you. As a reminder to board members, because we are doing this online, I'm asking Katie to do a roll call vote for us. And so, Katie, if you would please.
Member Bellamy.
Yes.
Member Mitchell.
Yes.
Member Hildy.
Yes.
Member Donnelly.
Yes.
Member Vacalis.
Yes.
Member Marset.
Yes.
And Member Holloman.
Yes.
Thank you.
And the consent agenda passes with 7 yeas and 0 nays. Moving on to the action items. We do not have any public testimony that I am aware of. If Katie, you could confirm that for me.
That is correct, President Kalis.
All right, so Vice President Bellamy.
Yes, Madam Chair. I move to approve ASD Memorandum 119 and authorize the superintendent to relinquish a portion of undeveloped land and amend the district's lease with J-Bear, as described by the draft U.S. Department of Veteran Affairs Parcel Transition Agreement Memorandum and Attachments.
Second.
Thank you. Are there any board member questions on ASD Memorandum 119?
Yes.
Board Member Marset?
Sorry, I couldn't raise my hand quick enough. One of the questions I have with this development, and I'm not sure, I'm assuming that it's on the side of Bartlett School that they're going to be building the addition. Is there going to be I know right now there's not a fence between the facility and the high school, but do you know if there'll be a fence built, being that they're going to be providing more mental health services?
So through the board president, the member Marset, I'm going to ask Mr. George Vacalis to respond to some of the specific details of the agreement. I don't know the specific answer to that question concerning a fence.
So yes, if I may, through the president. So what the agreement really does, it allows for a parking lot on that parcel of land, because the Veterans Administration is going to add on to their current building on the other side of Zucker Street. And as you know, Zucker separates the Bartlett High School properties from the VA. So what this is that front piece of property that's all wooded right now. And so it's going to be a parking lot to be able to handle the additional staff parking as a result of the wing addition that's going to be added to the building itself on the other side of the road. The agreement calls for a treed buffer between Bartlett and the parking lot. It also calls for adequate drainage so that no drainage goes onto school property. It drains out into the drainage ditch. And it also calls for the district to basically be responsible for the road that leaves the Bartlett parking lot, the rear parking lot, and goes out to Zucker. Because as you know, that's where the buses travel. So the district wanted to maintain responsibility of that so that we could keep it plowed, et cetera, and not have any incursions on it to hamper our movement. So I think overall, it's not a bad thing at all for the VA, but it doesn't impact the district either. Does that answer your questions?
Well, it does. I think my concern is being that they are going to be providing more mental health services. And, you know, not a reflection on the military at all. It's just a precaution for our students. And I know that there have been several incidents at the VA clinic with patients. And so to me, it raises a concern for the safety of our students. And I was just wondering if we were going to put a fence along there.
Well, right now, the agreement doesn't call for it.
Okay.
But, you know, if that's a big concern, that's certainly something we could try to negotiate. But my understanding right now is it's primarily going to be staff parking there. And so the folks that will basically be going to the VA facilities themselves will be parking those other parking lots. That's my understanding as of right now.
Yeah. I'm not saying we need to do that. I'm just raising the concern, and I'm sure you guys will take a look at that.
Thank you. I saw Board Member Mitchell's hand up. I don't know if you still have a question or if it got answered. Are there any other, go ahead.
I just was curious if that, it sounds like it's not really land that was used by the school or the students other than maybe cross-country running through there.
No, that was not used for cross-country. It basically was just abandoned land. There was an old trail, but it's not an official trail that goes through there at all. I think what the trail is just some kids use that as a shortcut to get to across the street to the food outlet.
All right, board members, any other questions? Not seeing any, I'm going to ask for a roll call vote on ASD Memorandum 119.
Member Donnelly.
Yes.
Member Hildy.
Yes.
Member Mitchell.
Yes.
Member Bellamy.
Yes.
President Michaelis.
Yes.
Member Marset.
Yes.
And Member Holloman.
Yes.
ASD Memorandum 119 passes with 7 yeas and 0 nays. And Vice Chair Bellamy?
Sure. I move to approve ASD Memorandum 117 and authorize the allocation of up to $200,208 from 2018C unallocated capital project interest earnings funds to supplement the King Tech High School roof replacement project.
Second.
Thank you. Do any board members have any questions?
Yes.
Member Marset.
So my question is, if we received 4.1 million that was allocated for this project, and now we're going to take interest earnings to add to this project, has the cost come in higher than the 4.1 million?
Through the president to Member Marset, I can answer that. The project is actually coming in under budget. As most of the board is aware, when we propose and then a bond passes, we have estimated costs for the projects. We don't sell the entire bond all at once. We only sell enough to cover the next about 18 months of what we expect to be coming in billing. When we sell a bond, we take that money in initially because we haven't received bills yet from the contractors. We put it in an investment account. So every single bond sale has its own investment account. So what we did is, knowing this project, frankly, is coming under budget, we knew we had $200,280 in interest earned. It was easier to take that money and put it towards one project than to split it across multiple projects. And so that's really all it is. Not that, as Dr. Bishop says, we like to keep clean books. We do, but sometimes it's easier to take all of the interest earnings, one pot, one project, and then zero it out.
Okay, so that was the interest earned off of the bond itself.
The bond sale, the piece of the 2017 bond that we sold in 2018, that's the interest over 2 years.
Okay, thank you.
Any other board member questions? Not seeing any, I'm going to call for a roll call vote on ASD memorandum number 117.
Member Holloman.
Yes.
Member Marset.
Yes.
President Michaelis.
Yes.
Member Donnelly.
Yes.
Member Hildy.
Yes.
Member Mitchell.
Yes.
And Member Bellamy.
Yes.
ASD memorandum number 117 passes with 7 yeas and 0 nays.
I move to approve ASD Memorandum 110110 and authorize the superintendent to award a contract for the Chugach High School track repairs project to Little Susitna Construction Company Incorporated for a total award amount of $586,868. The total contract award includes the base bid amount of $546,868 and additive alternative number 1 in the amount of $40,000.
Second.
Thank you. Do any board members have any questions on ASD memorandum 110? Not seeing or hearing any, I'm going to call for a roll call vote on ASD memo 110.
Member Hildy.
Yes.
Member Mitchell.
Yes.
Member Bellamy.
Yes.
Member Marset.
Yes.
Member Holloman.
Yes.
President Michaelis.
Yes.
And Member Donnelly.
Yes.
And ASD memorandum number 110 passes with 7 yeas and 0 nays.
Madam Chair, I move to approve ASD Memorandum 121 and authorize the superintendent to award a contract for the Eagle River Elementary School earthquake recovery to Waterston Construction Company for a total award amount of $10,848,599.
Second.
Board members, are there any questions on memorandum 121?
Yes.
Member Marset.
And I'm sorry, I'm just trying to understand this a little more. So when I look at the budget summary and it has construction for 10 million, is that the previous? Oh, that was Chugach. Never mind. Thank you.
All right. Eagle River Elementary.
All right, not seeing any other hands or questions being raised. I'll do a call for roll call vote on ASD memorandum 121.
Member Holloman.
Yes.
Member Marset.
Yes.
President Michaelis.
Yes.
Member Donnelly.
Yes.
Member Bellamy.
Yes.
Member Mitchell.
Yes.
Member Hildy.
Yes.
Thank you.
ASD memorandum number 121 passes with 7 yeas and 0 nays. Glad to see that coming along.
Madam Chair, I move to approve ASD Memorandum 127 and adopt a resolution supporting additional federal education funding for our nation's public schools.
Second.
Thank you. Are there any board member questions on ASD memorandum 127? Board member Mitchell?
I just would like to say that I very much appreciate that this specifies that federal funds should be given to public schools.
Mm-hmm. I agree.
All right, not seeing any other hands raised or people chiming in. I will call for a roll call vote on ASD memorandum number 127.
Member Bellamy.
Yes.
Member Holloman.
Yes.
Member Mitchell.
Yes.
Member Marset.
Yes.
President Michaelis.
Yes.
Member Hildy?
Yes.
Member Donnelly?
Yes.
And ASD memorandum number 127 passes with 7 yeas and 0 nays. That is our last action item on our agenda tonight. Next up is our non-action items. There are 2 items listed there. Do any board members wish to pull either one of them to ask any questions? Member Marset?
Yes, I'd like to pull memorandum 125.
All right. Any others? All right. So board member Marset, if you had questions on 125.
Did we not raise lunch prices last year?
Mr. Roth, can you share the information?
Through the board president to member Marset, I'm going to ask that Andy Mergens be brought over to the panel to address the specifics of any raises to meal cost or meal fees last year.
I'm on.
Yep, I can see Andy.
Yep. Hey, Andy.
So through the board president, to answer member Marset's question, yes, we did raise prices last year. We raised them by 25%, or by 25 cents rather. And this year's plan is to raise them by another 25 cents.
And can you, I'm sure I know the rationale, but can you provide that?
Yeah, basically what we're doing is, in order to keep pace with the cost of labor and supplies, we're raising the price on a yearly basis in order to, again, to keep up keep up with the costs and the increase to labor and food supplies, and also to maintain what's known as paid lunch equity, which is the difference between what the federal government reimburses us for free meals and what a paid student would pay, to try to keep those as close to the same as possible.
And if I might, through the president, just add, so this is really, it's based on what is a state paid lunch equity assessment, again, based on the USDA formula to maintain that gap. And we have seen in student nutrition, fairly significant cost increases year to year.
Yeah, I understand that. I'm just looking at this, and it's, for a student, it's $17 a week. It's $68 a month. So, I mean, that's a lot of money, I guess, for me, for families that either don't apply or pay or whatever. But I understand the reasoning. Thank you.
Board member Mitchell, I see your hand raised.
So just to clarify, I have a question and then I have a clarification. So Mr. Roth, you're saying that this is something we have to do. And my question is, when we raised the price this year, did we see paid lunch purchases going down? Because I would think there is some price sensitivity here.
Through the board president to member Mitchell, I guess I'd have to defer to Andy on any decrease. I would offer my own observation is that the price increase did not result in a significant decrease in the number of paid meals. The majority, and just for clarification, and I think most all board members understand that this impacts the students who are not eligible to receive free and reduced, or students who are attending CEP eligible school programs. So the majority of our meals, frankly, are going to those populations of students. And I just want to confirm, did I answer your question?
Well, I guess you said there's a federal equity requirement, so that when the reimbursement increases, we also have to increase the amount. So that's a federal requirement. We don't have any choice here.
We are obligated. I mean, there is some discretion that's given. It doesn't. You're not required to increase an equal amount every year to compensate for the difference in costs. But again, with student nutrition, They draw from another fund source, and if they're not able to stay solvent, then the impact is on generally come back to the general fund to make up the balance, the difference for over cost to their operation. So that's really what's driving this. It's not to make a profit. It's to keep student nutrition solvent, so we're not pulling monies from the general fund.
Yes, I'd just like to follow up on that. So to your question, they're actually, it isn't that you must, it's in order to keep it in the black. The alternative would be to be, put about, I believe, close to $200,000 from the general fund into the food service fund.
Thank you. I see Board Member Marcette has her hand up.
And I know at the end of the year last year, we were told how much was taken from the general fund and put into nutrition for the cost of lunches. Do we know what that, it's going to be less, I'm assuming, because we haven't had students in school, not counting the lunches that we've been given out, but just while students were in school. Do we have that number? The cost?
The unpaid meal prices.
Right.
So I'm going to defer to Andy Mergens. I'm not sure, Andy, if you've got that data available.
I don't have the specific data on hand. There is a line item in the budget that goes forward that draws roughly $100,000 a year out of the general fund to pay for the unpaid meal balances. Those are the balances that students who are not on a free status and are paying for their meals accrue when they don't actually pay for the meals. A lot of that, the current balance on that account right now, I'm not sure.
We can put that in the Board Connect.
Or even when it goes up as an action item, that'd be fine too.
Yeah, because I don't have those numbers handy, and with the with the crisis, we've had a bigger fish to fry.
No, I understand, Andy, believe me. And that was certainly, you weren't prepared for that. But yeah, in Board Connect or, at our next school board meeting when it's up to vote on, maybe just provide that information.
Sure, no problem.
Thank you.
So if you're okay getting that in Board Connect, that's probably going to be the way to do it, because it looks like this is an information only item and is not going to move up to action because there's no action needed on it.
Right.
Oh, okay. Oh, I see. I'm sorry. I didn't see that. Yep, that sounds good. Thank you.
Perfect. All right. Any other board member questions on this item? Thank you, Tom and Andy, for weighing in on that. We're going to go ahead and move on. The next item on the agenda is the prioritization of board requests, and I'm not aware of any new ones that have come in. Are there any board members that believe there are that may have been missed or something like that that need to be prioritized? Okay, thank you. So we do not have any additional public testimony at this point. So this brings us to the school board and administration comments. And if board members just want to raise their hand if they have anything they want to say. Board member Marcette.
Again, I just want to thank you guys. I listened to when we have our board of director meetings for AASB. It's always mentioned how ASD is in the forefront and how other school districts look to us and the information and with guidance that we provide them. I just want to thank you. I know this has not been easy, and then you've got 7 board members asking you pesky questions. So I appreciate your tolerance and your grit and determination and your resilience. And I just have to ask, if anybody has a megaphone or pom-poms, let me know. I need them for the graduation ceremony. Thank you.
Thank you. Board member Mitchell.
I just want to thank everybody in the administration for all of the work that's gone into making these graduations and the principals and everybody on the ground for making our high school graduations as special as they can be under these circumstances. I also want to just wind up Teacher Appreciation Week, thanking, again, hopefully our teachers felt very, very appreciated. I think that we all recognize just, the amount of stress that they have been under, and our students as well. It's so far, it seems like the community is holding together well, which is really wonderful. I also want to thank the district for being collaborative and partnering. I think that's critical, especially during these times. It's critical for us as a district, and it's critical for the community to be able to support. People love the schools. People love supporting children, and the more we can help people partner, the better off we are. I love the fact that we're partnering with Volunteers for America. And I also very much appreciate that we are, these are public facilities. These are taxpayer dollars, as well as many, many, many other sources of funding, given that we don't pay a ton of taxes in Alaska. But, the fact that we are opening our public facilities to help partner with organizations. I know that, for example, a group that I sit on the advisory board for, Trailside Discovery Camp, is really making an effort to run camp this summer. Parents have a huge need for this because kids do need to connect, and parents need to be able to work. And I know that the district is working very hard to partner with that particular camp to provide outdoor space so that they can change the format and have kids at a variety of different facilities so they can social distance and still have a not the same, but a decent camp experience for children. And I'm sure there are many, many other community groups we are partnering with to allow access to our public facilities for these community supports. So I really appreciate everything the administration is doing in all of those areas and everybody in the district. So thank you.
All right, I don't see any other hands raised or anybody jumping in. So at this point, I just want to say thank you to the board for all of the hard work, the thoughtful questions, the administration for the answers, and being with us tonight. Just thank you for all of that, for all of the hard work that you guys are doing. A reminder to the public that's watching, our next board meeting is May 26th. And at this time, I will take a motion and a second to adjourn.
I move to adjourn.
I second.
Awesome. Have a great night, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank
Great
you.
meeting. Thank you.
Thank you.